Hey everyone, welcome into another episode of the Inside Voice podcast. I'm so glad you're here. Quick side note, if you watched last week's episode on YouTube, we talked about focus. You could have listened to the podcast just fine. But I want to know if you watched on YouTube because I put something in the frame that I want to know if you picked up on, if you were able to see it. We talked about focus, and I wanted to know how focused you were on the video. And I didn't say anything about it, but he's right here. He's my little Jesus hanging out with me on this table back here. Have you seen these? These are so adorable. I see them everywhere these days. I've had him for a couple of years. Shout out to my friend Diesel who gave him to me because everybody needs a little Jesus in their life. He's adorable, right? I love him. I'm going to put him over here just so you don't get distracted by him. But yeah, I thought that'd be a little fun. If you picked up on it, obviously I'd love to hear from you. As we are moving through this idea of focusing on our goals and trying to set up things for us to do every single day, and ultimately we're trying to make ourselves successful in our goals. I'm a firm believer that a little bit of progress every single day is so much better than giant progress every so often. A giant leap every so often. They say slow and steady wins the race. I feel like it's better to have those little things that you're doing every single day to reach a goal than big things every so often. Big things are, I think they come with more risk, and they could go the wrong way or maybe not serve you in the way that you thought. And to me, it's just daily things and a little thing here and there that if you do that consistently, you're going to make better progress. I think about when I was trying to lose weight, I'd established a fitness routine, and I thought that I had figured out nutrition for myself. And then I really got into well, if I get down to the nitty gritty with calories and stuff, can I actually lose a little weight on my body? Well, rather than weighing myself every week and being oh gosh, did I do what I was supposed to do? I don't know why the scale went up or the scale went down. I went through it and weighed myself every single day. People think that this is bananas. Why would you put yourself through that? Well, one, it keeps me on track. And it lets me know if I'm being consistent, if my weight is the same every single day. But also, it takes away the shock of oh gosh, all of a sudden I'm up, 3 pounds. What the heck happened? It's okay, but yesterday you weren't up 3 pounds. So take the average of the week. Something about having more data, more to pull from. This is why studies have more weight to them. If there's more subject matter, if there's more participants in a study, just because you've got a bigger field of data to pull from. You know what I mean? So why wouldn't you want that for yourself as well? Why wouldn't you want to have progress or have tasks that you're doing every single day to move towards your goal, to give you more confidence and to give you a better idea of what's working and what's not working? You know what I mean? So that's why it's important for us to do things each and every day, even if they feel small, to achieve what we're ultimately going to achieve. I wish I would have brought it in here. I've been talking to you about one of my goals this year is to read the Bible, the entire Bible. Now, I could sit down and say, I'm going to read 7 chapters today and do that maybe once a month. I don't know. I don't know if the math's on that. Or I got a 1-year Bible that tells me read these few chapters each and every day, and you will be well on your way to reading the entire Bible by the end of it. It feels small. It feels well, I'm only reading 15, 20 minutes a day. What? That's not going to get me through. But I can see the bookmark moving in the Bible. I can see it going through, and it's oh no, I'm making progress here. That's exciting, right? It's also less daunting than an every so often task that's just a lot of work. If I can just give you one more example, somebody told me when I was early on in my marriage and we were in our first house, and I thought the best way to keep the house clean was to devote a Saturday to cleaning. This person was you could do that and it would probably work out well for you, but what if you chose one task to do each day? What if your task on Monday, this is kind of my schedule, your task on Monday is to dust, and your task on Tuesday is to clean the master bathroom. Little things that if done consistently will keep the house clean on a regular basis and not make me lose an entire Saturday. Winning. Maybe this podcast should be about small wins and little things that add up to big differences, but that's not what we're talking about today. We've been all over the place. I want to talk about environment. I want to talk about how you can set yourself up for success and give yourself an advantage in those daily tasks by setting up a good environment for you to be productive. A good environment for you to win. I need you to be in the zone daily when it comes to making progress on your goal. So the definition of environment, since we are nerdy and like a good definition, the definition of environment is surroundings or conditions in which a person, animal, or plant lives or operates. That is your environment. Now, before we go any further, I do want to say I don't really buy into the idea of you're a victim of your environment. I think that belittles what God can do, first and foremost. But I think it also sometimes it just can be used as an excuse. And I'm not trying to minimize what your situation may be. There are always going to be exceptions to things. There's always going to be that one situation that's maybe not the norm, but it's very real to you. I am not at all trying to just brush past that or, minimize it or, belittle it in any way. But I do think that oftentimes we throw up our hands too quickly because we've just decided that too much is out of our control. And I don't like that. Again, I think it limits the power of Almighty God. But I think it also leaves you feeling hopeless if you give up that quickly because of the environment. Now, that being said, is the environment that you're in conducive to the goal that you are trying to reach? Have you ever been in an environment that changes you? Like, think about walking into a gym. You feel a different energy when you walk into a gym, right? Environment is energy. When you walk into a gym, people are pumping iron, they're huffing and puffing on the treadmill, like they're motivated, like they're getting the job done. And it's hard to walk into that place and not be like, oh, I want to do that too. Now, granted, you can also be intimidated, but for the most part, it's like, yeah, I want to work. Yeah, okay. I'm going to work out. I'm going to do that extra rep. I see this person pushing hard. I'm going to push hard. Or what about the environment of church? You might dress a little differently. You might sit a little differently. You might worship a little differently. What about the environment of a library? You're not going to be walking into a library like you would a sports bar. You walk into a library and you're like, oh, quiet, calm. This is a place of learning. This is a place of studying. This is a place of reading and enlightening ourselves. Like, it's a different type of energy as opposed to, say, the Super Bowl, like when you walk into the stadium for a sporting event, especially one as big as the Super Bowl, like it's loud, it's energetic. You find yourself yelling and shouting things that you never thought you would yell and shout before because the energy is just electric. You might find yourself going wild for the team. I think of myself in college, my gosh, I am a sports lover, okay? I have had to tone down the things that I say and the things that I yell because when I was in college and I was standing, baseline, basketball games, I can't repeat some of the things that I yelled, but I just got into it. I was in the environment. You know what I mean? I was feeling it. Environment changes the energy. It changes your behavior. It changes your attitude. It changes your demeanor. This is why environment is so incredibly important for whatever goal you are chasing. It's Jay Shetty that said, he was the first one I heard it from. I think it's him. Time holds memory, space holds energy. And we can get into routine one of these days and talk about like why timing is important and consistency with timing is important, like circadian rhythm, that kind of stuff. But we'll focus on the space right now. Your space where you work out, your space where you craft your business plan, your space where you work, your space where you have game night with your family. That space is important because it holds that energy. This is why in the process of writing my book, I go to the library. I'm not trying to be holier than thou. I am not trying to be, extra studious or anything like that. I have just chosen that place as the place where I'm going to do deep work on that book. And I'm telling you, it works. Now, it's obviously a space and an environment that's already, it lends itself to, hey, we're going to be quiet and we're going to be focused and we're going to work, right? Which I needed. I live and work in my home. And sometimes it's hard for me to do other things besides live and work in my home. You know what I mean? But the library to me, it's just like it's where I turn it on. It's my playing field. It's the stadium. It's the arena. And actually, just the other day, I had a writing session that I scheduled for myself because it's important to me. And again, we make time for things that are important. And I remember sitting in the parking lot and I was like, God, I don't have anything. I really don't. I need you to give me the words. I need you to give me the attitude. Like I said that prayer. And honestly, like whether you're a believer or not, like the environment helped me sit down and write. Like God obviously gave me the words to say, don't get me wrong, but I almost left sitting in that car. I was like, I don't have it in me. I don't even want to do this right now. I don't even want to open my laptop. But when I walked in that library and went to the same room that I always go to, sat at the same table that I always sit at, looking out the same window that I always look out, it was like, this is where we do work. This is where we write our book. And it was like my entire attitude changed. And I was almost like more open to what God was telling me to put on that paper. You know what I mean? Environment totally matters. I think about my garage that I work out in. There's times when I don't want to do a workout and it's tough to get out of bed. It's tough to put those shoes on. The garage is cold because, it's 30 degrees outside. But something about like as soon as I step in there and like I feel the mats underneath my feet and like I get my podcast going and everything, like I set the scene for myself. It's like, game time. Let's do work. The environment absolutely matters. So I want to encourage you to take note of the environment that you're in your day-to-day life, but especially when you're trying to do work on the goal that you're trying to achieve, on the task that you have set up for yourself for the day to move you toward your goal. All right. And if you can't pick a good environment, maybe you don't have a lot of options for a gym where you live, or maybe, your library is always really crowded on the day that you could go, or like it's the day that the kids are there and it's just really distracting. Maybe you can't pick the environment that fuels that change. I want to encourage you to create the environment that would make that change. Maybe you designate, this was so important in COVID. Goodness, when people were at home working, it was like, you need to pick a place that is your workspace. My uncle even told me this when I started working from home. Gosh, back in 2017, I started working from home before it was cool, before it was the COVID thing, He told me, he's like, there are things that you're going to have to do to train yourself to say it's work time. Now, I'm very blessed. I have an office in my home, and that is my office. That is my studio. I'm sitting in it right now, but even like this little corner that I'm in my office, this is where I do this podcast. This is an environment that I've created for myself to do the work of the podcast. And it's not perfect, okay? We're not talking like you need to bust down a wall and like build out an extension to your house or anything like that, or rent another apartment. No, we're not talking about crazy. We're just talking about like, give yourself an area where it makes sense for you to do work. Like this is literally a corner. If you want to know what I'm looking at, my desk is right here for my job. Right over here, like down from the camera, is my dog's bed because that's where he sits when I'm working on my job. My setup like is literally a TV tray and like a giant piece of Tupperware and then my laptop that I'm looking at and I'm recording in. That's it. That is all I'm doing to make this podcast. But again, it's the environment that I've created for myself. It's the space that I've created for myself to sit down and do work. And similar to that experience with the library, I know that when I sit in this pink chair that I bought from Target and built myself, I know when I sit in this chair, it is podcast time. This little nook over here, it's podcast time. When I look at Persephone over here, my plant, it's podcast time. So how do you create that environment? Well, like we just talked about, like start small, start with something, a nook, a cranny, a cushion on the couch, start with something, a corner of your living room, a piece of the little patio that you have outside or your balcony at your apartment. Start with something that you designate as your place to be focused and your place to work. Start small. There's nothing wrong with that, Maybe it's a little much trying to get to another space, another environment, but you can carve out something for yourself where you're at. And what I would recommend as you're looking to create that environment, be disciplined, set boundaries. When I'm not working or doing this podcast, I'm not in this office. I'm not, like taking meals in here or phone calls in here. Like, this is my workspace. I'm very protective of it. And I would recommend that you set boundaries for yourself as well. And this doesn't just have to be physical boundaries of like, this is my space where I work, but it can also be like, I'm going to eliminate distractions and I'm going to eliminate temptations for myself. I've heard this said in so many sermons, and in even my own pastor has said this. Like, don't wait for a temptation to arise for you to make the right decision. Eliminate that temptation from your environment before you ever have to confront it. There's a reason why it's a temptation, right? It's tempting. You want it, I think about when I started dialing in with nutrition, I had to get rid of junk food in my house. And not just like candy, not just like chocolate, but like ice cream had to go. And honestly, there was a time when I couldn't even keep peanut butter in the house because I knew it was a problem for me. I love peanut butter, but I've learned that peanut butter isn't always the best option for me to eat. But especially in those early days when I was trying to set new habits and make meaningful, lasting change, I couldn't have that stuff lying around because it was like a constant reminder of what I didn't want to be anymore. It was a constant reminder of the identity that I used to identify with, that person that I used to identify with, the one that would eat more than she should, or binge every so often, or, eat the ice cream or whatever. And I'm not saying any of that stuff is bad. Like, please have a treat every so often, But again, when I was dialed in, when I was focused and trying so hard to establish healthy eating habits, the bad stuff had to go. It absolutely had to go, because if it was in the house, there wasn't a lot of friction to keep me from engaging in the temptation. And trust me, those were tempting foods. So don't wait until you're tempted or even triggered to trust yourself to make the good decision. Like, maybe one of your goals this year is like, you want to fix a relationship with somebody that is so estranged from you right now. Like, you've really struggled with this person and there's issues with forgiveness and bringing up the past, and it's hard to move on with them, like, you're going to have to set up boundaries with yourself with that person in a certain environment that would leave you triggered. Okay. Because if you get triggered, you're going to snap. You know what I mean? So don't wait for those moments to arise before you try to trust yourself to make the right decision. Eliminate those triggers, eliminate those temptations so you don't even have to confront them in the first place. You want to talk about a life hack? That is a life hack. You want to talk about a key to achieving a goal? That's a key to achieving a goal. Another way that you can work on your environment, or a how-to of changing your environment. And again, it can be a physical space. It can be an emotional space. It can be a friend group that you're around. Be vulnerable. Be vulnerable with people that you can ask help from, and they've got your best interest at heart. I'm not saying that they're a yes person. No. That's not good for your environment. Too much of a good thing can harm you. We talked about watering a garden and taking care of a garden, stewarding a garden. If you water it too much, you can actually drown things out there. I've learned this. But be vulnerable and find people that are going to keep you in line, keep you accountable, and people that understand your blind spots. I think about, we talked last week about the Olympians that are training right now. They all got coaches. They all got people that are experts in the field, but also they're experts in the person that they're working with. And they know like, ooh, think of bobsledders, like, ooh, turn 3, not a good turn for you. We got to work on that. I need you to come more inside, less outside. Like they coach you, they pick up on your tendencies, and they know what you're supposed to be doing, and they help you along the way. They help kind of right the way for you. It's almost like bumpers on a bowling alley. You want to go straight down the alley, you might start to veer a little bit. The bumpers can help you, stay in line. If the gutters weren't enough of a deterrent for you. Nobody wants to be in the gutter. But, find a coach or a friend that you can be accountable to. When I first started working out and found consistency, it was because I had a friend that was also on the same path. And still to this day, nearly 6 years later, we do the same workouts on the same days, roughly at the same time, give or take a couple of days or a couple of weeks here and there. But for the most part, like that's what we're doing. And we send a video to each other after we finish the workout to recap. But also it's like, we're checking in with one another. She lives in another city. That's why we have to send the video. We're not working out together physically, but emotionally and mentally. But again, that was a key in helping me stay on track. That was an environment that I needed, somebody that I could check in with on a regular basis to hold me accountable. So see, your environment doesn't have to just be a physical space. It can be the people that you're putting yourself around. I also want, on that note, to remind you to be picky. Be disciplined and set boundaries, be vulnerable, but be picky of what you let into your environment. This kind of goes along with keeping junk food out of the house. It kind of goes along with keeping distractions away when you're doing work. I'm recording this podcast right now. My phone is not in this room because I know if I hear it buzz or if I see it light up, it's going to distract me. And I don't need to be distracted. Maybe I don't actually pick it up and try to scroll through social media on it, but just that feeling or that sound of a notification just pulls you out of your element a little bit. Be picky of what you allow into your space that is going to pull your focus. I would also recommend that you take note of the people that are around you. We talk about having a coach, having somebody that can check you for your blind spots and help you stay on track. Wonderful thing. On the opposite side of that, we can have people that may be wonderful people, well-meaning people, but they just have a way of pulling you down. They just have a way that every time you get excited about a goal that you've set for yourself, they're kind of like, it's a big goal. And again, you don't need yes people around you, but you don't need people that are constantly going to be tearing you down, constantly second guessing you, constantly making you prove why the thing you're chasing after matters to you in the first place. Those are not people that are supporting you. Oh, they'll throw it at you like, oh, well, I just, I want to make sure I can pray for you. Or they might say it in the way of like, well, I just want to make sure that, like you're being realistic. Well, I just want to, make sure that I'm showing up for you. See how people manipulate things when they're just trying to tear you down. Be picky of the people that are around you. I've heard this said in sermons before too, of like, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. The people, and there's that other thing of like, the 5 people that you're closest to are the 5 people that you're most like. It's like you start to take on those characteristics. You start to take on those attitudes or those catchphrases, those inside jokes, if you will. You're spending time with these people. It's hard for them not to have an effect on you, on who you are and your behavior. This is why parents are so big on like, don't run around with the wrong crowd, back in the day, because there is an influence. Regardless of how much you try not to be influenced, it just naturally happens. So there might be people in your life that they were great in a season, but you're in a new season and you just can't have them at the forefront anymore. There might be people straight up that you just need to eliminate completely. That sounds harsh, but maybe you don't need to be spending that time with them anymore. They're just bad influences on you. Doesn't mean you don't love them. You just can't be that involved with them anymore. It could be people that you just can't let into a certain level anymore. You thought you could be deep with this person. You thought you could share vulnerable things with them, but then you find out they're talking behind your back. Or They're pushing you into bad habits as a way to console you. When like these are not things that you need to be into, like numbing yourself with substances or alcohol, when that's not really conducive or helpful if you're trying to get out of a dark spot. You know what I mean? Like you may need to take stock of the people that you allow in, and definitely take stock of the people that you are allowing in on the dream, on your goal. You don't want anybody in there that's gonna, the moment you want to give up, they're like, yeah, it wasn't really worth it anyway. No, you need people that are gonna be like, nah, you ain't giving up. You've made a commitment and we're sticking to the commitment. So take stock of people. I would also take stock of the other influences that you have in your life. And yeah, we're going to talk about social media. We're going to talk about what you're consuming on the internet on a regular basis. We are no longer going to hate follow people. Okay? That is not helpful for you. We are no longer going to follow people that make us feel like we're not good enough, or we're not worth it, or what we're chasing is too big, or that's not meant for you, or even people that have what we want and that makes us feel like we lack and we're never going to get there. Don't follow those people. Don't engage with those people. I don't care if that's your cousin. Like, you don't need to follow them on social media. You can see them at the family reunions and the holidays, and that's great. But you don't need to see their stuff constantly, okay? I'm a firm believer that if something is not serving you, if social media is leaving you feeling depressed, you're going to have to make some changes. You're going to have to unfollow some things. You're going to have to get off of social media more often. And we can even extend this to what you're consuming as far as television shows go, or movies go, or books go. I know it seems really ridiculous. Like, it's just entertainment. It's not a big deal. But sometimes those things get into you. Sometimes those things, they have a weight on you. You might see something in a movie that, like, oh, it's no big deal, but then like it just weighs on you. It just sticks with you. I think it's, what is that little like Bible school thing, like careful little things what you hear, careful little ones what you see, or careful little ears what you hear, careful little eyes what you see. Like, that stuff just gets into you. And if it's not serving you, if it's leaving you feeling a negative way, like, get off of it. Like, stop watching it. Just because everybody else is watching it doesn't mean you need to watch it. I've told my friends this before. I really enjoyed the show Yellowstone until it became so violent and graphic that I couldn't anymore. I loved the concept. I loved the storyline. The characters were incredible, but like, I would wake up having like a nightmare, I know. I'm a little cupcake muffin. It's okay. But, I've had these talks with friends and family members. Like, if I'm going to watch something to entertain myself, like, I want it to leave me feeling good and like happy. That stuff it gets into you. Again, it's your environment. So again, those three things of how do you set up a good environment: be disciplined, be vulnerable, and be picky. And again, this is beyond just the physical space that you're in. This is beyond just the physical environment, because let's face it, your physical environment may be nothing like what you want to live in. It may be nothing of like what you have ever wanted or expected for your life. That's okay. That's just a season. You can make changes to get out of that. You can make changes and persevere through this time until you get to a better quote unquote environment. Like we said at the beginning, I don't always buy into this victim of an environment. I severely believe that undermines the power of God. And I think it undermines what you can do as well. Some of these things that we talked about, like being vulnerable, being picky, and being disciplined, have nothing to do with that physical space. So keep that in mind, okay? As you're taking note and taking stock of your environment and trying to build a space and a community and an environment that like pushes you and motivates you and encourages you. That's what you want when you're trying to chase a goal, because trust me, there's a lot of stuff that's going to come at you that's going to push you away from your goal. All right. So any way that you can kind of build yourself up, you're going to want to focus on those things. I also want to remind you that there are things that happen in your life that are completely out of your control, but it's what you do in reaction to those things. It's your perspective of those things that changes the outcome. Okay. You might have been born into or raised in a tough environment, but you can still persevere to get out of it. We love those success stories, right? Think of The Pursuit of Happiness, that movie with Will Smith. My goodness, that can make me bawl like a baby. But like, he wasn't living in an ideal environment, but he pushed with everything he had to achieve what he wanted. So again, there's going to be things in your life that you can't control. Focus on the things that you can control, the things that you can change, the things that you can push toward, okay? It's about changing that mind, changing that mindset, changing that focus again. And I also want to remind you that your environment can also be your past experiences. And it's about time that you moved out of those past experiences. You might have gone through something really hard. You might have gone through something very traumatic and you came out of it. First of all, good on you. Bravo. I am proud of you. But don't let those past experiences continue to rob you of the life that you can have, of the beauty that you can have in your life once again. Do not let those past experiences hold you back. It's time to let them go. It is time to move forward. I think about in scripture when God says, I am doing a new thing. He's doing a new thing in your life. Stop holding on to the past. And it sounds so strange. We hold on to the past in good things, but we also hold on to the bad things. Do you ever ruminate on things that happened to you or conversations that you had that were hard, that were hurtful, that were painful? It's like we go back to them. It's like we're just like reopening that wound over and over and over again. You can be free from that. You absolutely can. It does not minimize what you went through. It does not take away the impact that that had on your life. It absolutely does not. It was a big thing that happened to you, but it does not have to control you. Hard things in our lives, traumatic things in our lives, devastating things in our lives, grief in our lives, all of those things are so weighty. And they absolutely mark you. Losing my mom to suicide marked me. Absolutely. And you probably have something that happened in your life that absolutely marked you. It is a scar, but it no longer has to control you. It no longer has to own you. Okay? It left its mark, but it's just a mark. And you can pull from the good that you learned from those experiences, the lessons that you learned from those experiences, the hope that you gained in those moments. You know, I'm such an advocate for hope, even in the hardest of times. Again, like those hard things that you went through, yes, they made an impact on you, but you get to decide what you're going to do with it next. You get to decide if it's going to remain this dark cloud over your environment, or if you're going to step out into the light and start pursuing what is meant for you. Start pursuing what matters to you. Start stepping into God's given plan and purpose for your life. To step into the person that He has created you to be. It's about time you started looking around and taking note of your environment. And making changes to your environment, you know, a physical space that you're in, a community that you're in, a friend group that you're in, a family that you're in, a dream space that you're in, your mental space that you're in. It's time that you start making changes to that environment and start moving forward. Again, there's plenty out there that can hold you back. There's plenty out there that you can't control. There's plenty of things that have happened in the past that you can't go back and fix and change. It's time to move forward. It's time to embrace what's ahead. I'm so excited for what you're going to discover this week as far as setting yourself up for success. You know, maybe it's carving out a corner of your living space that's where you do your work. That's where you chase your goal. How fun is that? You know, I love stepping into this space. I love sitting in this chair and doing this podcast. You know, I love this little area that I've built for myself to do this work. And I'm so excited for you to find people that can come alongside you and support you, and that can hold you accountable, and that can help you navigate blind spots that you didn't even know were there. And I'm so excited for you to get picky, you know, to start minimizing and getting rid of things that are hindering you, like laying aside distractions. And what is that scripture that talks about like laying aside every weight and running the race, like I'm excited for you to do that this week, okay? So be cognizant of your environment and be aware and start thinking about the ways that you can change that environment to further your goal. Make it a good week for yourself, and I'll see you next week.